Specialised Economics here again with the 100-year life, and those of you who've been following this particular series, my Year 11 students in particular, you will know that we have been looking at this with regard to our competition that we'll be going to do with NIBE at the Newcastle Business School, and today we're on to chapter 4 with regard to intangibles. And what's really meant here, ladies and gentlemen, is the whole notion of intangible assets as opposed to tangible assets, and actually how important intangible assets are today, but not only today, how much more important and how much more work will have to be done with regard to intangible assets moving into a multi-stage life cycle, which is what will happen if you are going to live until you're 100 years of age. So, first of all, the key point, which is asked right at the start, is how important is money? And does money bring you happiness? And those of you who are studying Year 2 economics, you will encounter over the course of Year 2 something called the Easterlin Paradox, which actually shows that really there's not a great deal of correlation between rising income levels and increasing levels of happiness, because happiness depends upon these other intangible things in life, such as, the authors would suggest here, family, friends, your skills, your knowledge and your health. And as we move at college into our Healthy Living Week, I'll say a little bit more about that, but health and well-being and healthy lifestyle, very important. A dear friend of mine, a learned colleague, always used to say, Chico, as long as you've got your health, you'll be fine. There's nothing more important, because ultimately you can't buy good health even with all of the skills of the NHS and surgeons that we have nowadays. As long as you've got your health, health is one of the most important things, the most intangible things, intangible assets that you can have. Now the authors suggest that actually these tangible assets, so tangible assets are obviously things such as your house and your car and these things, these things that we all chase after in life, these tangible things. Well, actually the authors suggest that tangible and intangible assets are mutually exclusive, because obviously in order to have the finest of whatever material possession it is that you want, you need an income, and I guess in many instances the more knowledge you have, the more skills you have, then the greater your income will be, and so the more likely it is you'll be able to afford these things. So it would be wrong of us to say that these things are mutually exclusive. They're not mutually exclusive. However, tangible assets, and I'm moving here now, ladies and gentlemen, tangible assets, they provide a flow, and those of you who study economics, you'll know that they provide a steady stream of satisfaction over time, whilst over time their value clearly diminishes. Well, intangibles are the same, because they are in fact assets, they're clearly assets, but they're much more difficult to price. How does one put a price on friendship? How does one put a price on health? How does one put a price on knowledge? So these are much more difficult to put a price on, and therefore when we are planning our lives and maybe setting out a plan for the future, it's much more difficult to plan for these things and to prepare for these things and to invest in them. Some things just can't be bought. I mean, when you reach 80 years of age, you cannot simply go out to the marketplace and buy an 80-year friendship with somebody. These are things which you put in significant amounts of time and investment throughout the years. And you can't simply, the key point here is that intangible things, the family, the friends, the skills, the knowledge, the health, you cannot just buy, they're not commodities that you can just buy off the peg. They require significant investment. Neither are they substitutable or reversible. So if you've got a best friend, you've got a Bezzy in the UK, and you then move to Spain or Germany, well, you can't just sell off your friend in the UK and buy a new one in the foreign country. So these require care, they require nurturing, and those of you who go off to university, you will find that when you move away from home, your friendships that you once had at home, they become very difficult to maintain, and that's because of the significant investment required in them. So they're not substitutable or reversible. And then finally, let me just move this camera around, ladies and gentlemen, to give you the best view possible. We've talked about the Easterlin Paradox. Health and fitness. Now, your brain, ladies and gentlemen, will deteriorate if it is not used. And the authors suggest that your brain is best viewed as a muscle. Strictly speaking, it's not a muscle, but the more you use it, the more in shape it will be. And as a consequence of that, it's best to try and keep your brain occupied. Now, if you're going to live for 100 years, you'll have many years where that might not be the case, but you need to put things in place that will help you to do that. Very important, that, I think, especially when you retire, you want to keep busy, you want to keep occupied. And then work-life balance, ladies and gentlemen. If we're living longer, it might be possible to have a better work-life balance because you'll have more than a 3-stage life cycle of education, work, retirement. You'll be dipping in and out of these things maybe several times on each occasion. Maybe not the retirement, but certainly the first two, education and work. And so consequently, maybe that would be more manageable. Nowadays, healthy work-life balance is very, very difficult with the demands of modern society. And then you get these spillover effects where you carry the effects of your work life into your home life. If you've had a bad day at work, then you have a bad evening at home and so on. So this is very, very difficult to manage. So all of these things, ladies and gentlemen, are all pointing towards a multi-stage life cycle. The whole notion of education, then work, then retirement, as a clear 3-stage life cycle. This is now going down the tubes, and we're moving now towards a more multi-stage life cycle where we'll be investing more time into a good life, and where the intangible assets will be just as important as the intangible, and vice versa, because they are not, as we've said, mutually exclusive. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is chapter 4. Try to keep that as short as possible. It's a very long chapter, actually. Some great charts in that book, which if you purchase a copy of it, you could look at in your leisure. But we'll leave it at that, ladies and gents.